I like you when you make mistakes. I like you when you do things that you know you shouldn't do, and you should have listened to your therapist and you should have listened to your friends. But
Looking back, I'm like, red flag. But back then it was just like, that doesn't matter.
Stronger than before.
So, welcome everybody. I am so excited today to talk about something that has been kind of stuck in my head for a long time, which is this idea that abusers and narcissists create a fantasy and that we really struggle to destroy the fantasy. So, here with me is someone who actually said that to me a couple of years ago in a webinar that we hosted called The Science Behind a Trauma Bond. So, I would love it if you could introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
so whenever people ask me that, it just depends on my mood what I say. Because first and foremost, I'm an Aquarius. We got to get that out the way. I'm an Aquarius, and I'm Gen X, right? I was born in 1978. I'm 46, and that influences what I do so much. And so I'm a psychotherapist. I've been in mental health for 20 years. It is literally all I've ever done. I've never done anything else. I've worked with people in nursing homes, in hospitals, in hotels and schools. So this is all I do, is what I love. And I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. And as a mental health professional with a master's degree, right there on the wall, honey, never heard of narcissistic abuse. Never. It was never discussed. Domestic violence was never discussed in my program. I had no idea what was happening to me. I was on television at the time. On television, I would have these explosive arguments and then go sit on television and smile and talk and do the morning news. I can't make this up. It's the truth. And so I like talking about my lived experience and the experience of my clients over 20 years to help people make better choices.
Hmm. I will always say to people, I think that we talk about all the reasons that victims don't leave or can't leave, why we choose to stay. For me, it's that we don't know it's abuse. I think that the primary reason, and I've never really seen that on a list, but you have no idea that it's abuse. And I think that when you sit in a therapist's office, you might be describing something, solo therapy or couples therapy, and you don't know it's abuse. They don't know it's abuse. I don't know how people get out of it, especially when there's this fantasy that's been created by the abuser and we
Yeah.
sort of feed into it. But you talked about in that webinar this silver platter. The abuser gives you your unmet needs, your childhood fantasy on a platter. So I want to kind of ask you more about that. What does that mean? How does that happen?
So I was in therapy during this abusive relationship. My therapist never said I was being abused, and I told her everything that was happening. Okay. And I started to heal, and I started to think about, how did this happen to me? And what did he do? And everyone, there's so much shame, like, you should have saw the signs. And what I realized and what I learned through training is that abusers can know you and know exactly what it is that little girl inside of you or little person inside of you wants. And we give it away and we're not aware that we're giving it away. It could be micro movements in our face, it doesn't matter. But they pick up on this deep desire of wanting to be loved and wanting to be seen. And when you don't have that, right? And I'm fancy, I'm everywhere, I'm all over traveling. I didn't think that vulnerability was so discernible. I thought it was something that was hidden, but he was able to see it. And then he was able to say all the things I needed to hear. And it was the happy, in all honesty, it was the happiest I've ever been in my life. And he gave me exactly what I wanted. Exactly. And they know how to do it.
Hmm. That's interesting that you described that as you were the happiest you've ever been in your life. I hate to admit how much I agree with that. I look back and I think, so happy. But I think looking back, I see it with hindsight. Was I happy if it wasn't real? But that aside, I felt like that was the happiest time because all of my needs were just being met constantly. It also allowed me to hear things from him that looking back, I'm like, red flag. But back then it was just like, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's that's nothing. And we rationalize for them because we're just existing in this fantasy or even kind of in their distorted reality that they created for
Right.
us.
But when you, and this is why I mentioned being Gen X and being a latchkey kid and not having anyone around, no parents or anyone really guiding me and helping me understand how to live life, and being alone a lot. And then having this person come and they want to be with you all the time and just beaming on you. And the language of beaming is the language from mental health, where you're supposed to receive that from your primary caregiver, where they're asking you, how was your day? They're looking at you. They're just, I love you. Like you're amazing. You're exactly the kid I want. You're exactly the kid I want. I didn't hear that. And I've never met a person who has survived narcissistic abuse that felt that beaming. And they know how to beam on you. This man flooded me with attention and praise. And I would speak on panels, and he would be right there in the front row, just smiling at me. So proud. I'm an AKA, like our president is going to be Kamala Harris. So I'm marching in the parade and I'm waving. I've got my AKA letters on, and he's right there, smiling, so much pride. Aisha, Aisha didn't receive that, didn't receive it. And it felt like the emotional intoxication that it was. And that's the
Mm.
truth.
I had a similar experience in the sense that at the beginning it was amazing, and he would use the word soulmate and eventually shortened it to this cute little nickname. Like every time we would kind of have that moment of like, oh, we're such a good fit, he'd be like, soulies. And
Yes.
it constantly reinforced this connection. And you see all these pop culture terms like love bombing and hoovering and breadcrumbing and future faking. At the end of the day, I saw a different coach say this online, that they don't all do all of that. But at the end of the day, what's really happening is an idealization process in the beginning. And I think that really feeds into, they're idealizing you. They're building this fantasy so they can kind of hook you. Do you think that it's intentional? Do you think that on some level they know what they're doing?
I get that all the time. And I sometimes I have an answer, sometimes I don't. When I think about the predatory nature, and and understanding what's happening from a psychological perspective, it is predatory. And so the clients that I've worked with have been that are on that side of it, that are the narcissists, are the psychopath. They've been able to tell me that they do know, and they are looking specifically for certain things, and that they told me very, very, very clear that they can tell their next victim. They tell me all the time. So yes, I do believe they are aware to a certain degree.
Yeah. And I know, people really seek black and white answers to what I call gray questions. So there's not always like a yes, they know, no, they do not know. I think that it depends on several things. Narcissists and abusers, they're also humans and they're all different to a degree. But I've also heard direct from the mouths of abusers. You also read about this in books like Why Does He Do That? That abusers fundamentally know. They don't think that they're love bombing you. They don't know that they're putting you in a trauma bond, but they know that they're creating a powerful connection. They know that they're being manipulative and they're not really showing who they are.
Yeah.
So what would you say then to people who ask, like, how do I avoid this in the future? How can I recognize the idealization process? How is that different than really just falling in love with somebody?
I think a lot of it is how we see ourselves, and a lot of it is learning our own vulnerabilities and being okay with that. You know what I'm saying? And I think uh, for a lot of us, right? And this is Gen X, this is being the first person in my family to go to college, this is being in this amazing sorority and all these accolades and wanting to be seen that way, but knowing that there's this little part of me that really struggles with that. And now I'm okay with that. Now that's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm totally okay with it. But before I wasn't. And so love, understanding what love really is, and then being able to say, I love myself. So I'm looking
Mm.
to share the love that I have for me with you. You don't need to like me or love me because I got enough for me and for my all my little inner parts. It's enough love in here. It's so much that I want to share. I'm not trying to get it. That's the difference. And that takes a lot of maturity to get there in your life.
Yeah. Learning self-love is such a process. I know me, I've been in therapy for years, building that. And I've come so far, and I don't think anybody's ever really done, right? You keep
Right.
growing, keep learning, which is, you know, such a privilege to even have access to, right? But it's incredible to be able to learn that, but it's so important. And to be fair, it like pisses me off that I didn't learn it as a kid. I'm a millennial, and I know I hear this, you know, about your generation of just being, you know, not having parents around. I had parents around, and yet not teaching me what I think needed to be taught, not on purpose, right? I think that it's maybe just generational. You didn't learn it, so you don't teach it. But I wish so much that I had just learned how to see myself better. I don't think people realize how much your own self-worth and self-love is taught to you
Right.
inadvertently, sometimes, most often, probably even. But you can unlearn that you're not worthy and that you're not lovable and learn that you are, which I think is the truth. So you can change your belief,
Mhm.
and that allows people to protect themselves better anyway,
It does, but
to be
I
able to
think
recognize the signs.
exactly. I think that is hard because there were so many pressures on me, and it's contextual because as a Black woman, I'm 34, 35, and I'm not married, and here's this Black man, and he's amazing, and how come you don't want to marry him? Because he wants to marry you. And so what's wrong with you now? Because you have everything and he's doing all the things. And so there was all this pressure to have this life and to, step into this role. It was a huge amount of pressure. Like he makes all this money, he's this like greater than life person, which was all an act, 100% all an act. But it's an act that everyone really liked because he was doing things for other people. He wasn't pretending, like he was doing all of these things. And so then if I'm not co-signing that I want this relationship, well, then something's wrong with me. I'm mean. I'm the angry Black woman. I'm the one that has these too high standards. Do you know what I mean? And so there are a lot
Yeah.
of these different things that come into play. And I, at the time, even though I was a therapist, even though I was a homeowner, even though I drove a Mercedes, I couldn't say I was uncomfortable. I couldn't say it. I just couldn't. I couldn't say this is going too fast. I don't like this, right? I don't like this. This is too much for me because I had this narrative that I should be able to handle anything. I need to be able to handle it. It's not too much. It's all good. Like this is good. Why are you so uncomfortable? This is good. He wants to marry you. He wants to move in with you. He's buying you diamonds. He's buying you this. Now, honey, it's too much. You don't need to do all that. Let's go have tacos. You know what I mean?
Totally
Tacos.
agree. The sweeping gestures, I mean, and again, everybody's different. Some people love that, some people don't,
Yeah.
whatever. But if you feel like it's being laid on too thick,
Too
I
much.
definitely, only in hindsight, of course, but when I look back, I'm like, yeah, he was laying it on thick. We're talking about soulmates in 6 weeks,
Yeah.
spending 6, 7 nights a week together.
Yep.
You know, he was like spooning my dog. We were totally, you know, he'd met
Right.
parents, and everybody liked him. And I hear you with like he was doing things for other people. So suddenly I know for me, anytime I felt uncomfortable, it was like nobody else seems uncomfortable with him.
Right.
It must be me.
Right.
Inadvertently just reinforcing this narrative that like, what am I not catching here? So I just continued to push forward and
Right.
maybe even enjoyed the speed of it. It just seemed like, oh, this is what it's like when it's real. I've never felt this before, so this must be what love is. And I said to him many times, if this is love, I've never loved anyone before because this is what it feels like. And I think what I really am saying is that I maybe watched too many romantic comedies or too many Hallmark movies, and I really fed into. This actually reminds me of another video you made. I really fed into this sort of media giving you this idea that that bad boy, that player will become the right guy for the right woman. So how
Right.
do I be the right woman for him? Although I do want to kind of correct, it's bad boy. He was not like he's white collar, not in any
Mhm.
way appearing to be a bad boy, though very much turned out to be. But I didn't feel like I picked the wrong person. I felt like comes from a good family. He
Yeah.
treats me well. My friends like him. My family likes him. He says the right things. He does the right things. Yeah, there's a few things that irk me, but it's okay. Sometimes he yells, but it's okay. He's just, as I'm feeding into this whole concept that he's the one, Do you see that in your clients too, that people are just so like, he's the one?
And the new language is my person. My person. I'm trying to find my person. What do you mean by that? This person doesn't belong to you. And it's this idea of you belong to you. And it's also a lot of women I work with have this idea that in order to have a complete life, they need to have a romantic partner.
Mhm.
It has to be a romantic partner. It can't be five of the best women you've ever met in your life that you love, that you enjoy, chihuahuas, dog. No, 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 no. It's got to be a man. And your life is incomplete if you don't have a man. And I felt that way. And I had all of the things, but it was the inadequacy that was really projected onto me that, well, you don't have a man, so it doesn't really matter. It's like, or you can't keep a man. You can't keep a man. I don't want one. What do you mean not keep one? But all these messages is very difficult for one person to counteract all of that pressure. And when my clients come to me and we have a chance to just talk, and I get to ask them, what is it that you really want? What do you really want? You want, we all want the 6'4", what is it, 6'5" finance? We all want that. What do you want to feel? And so often what they tell me, I just want to feel loved. Well, what is it about love from a man? Talk to me about that, because your girlfriends love you. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about that you are prioritizing and pedestalizing? Tell me about that. When it's so fleeting and it's so inconsistent and it changes so much, why do you pedestalize that? And that conversation gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then we can go to the language and the messaging that we receive about love from our parents. And that's really what
Mhm.
it's really about.
That is so true, because that's really the unmet need, right? It was the messages that you were given and you're not getting it. And here they're going, you didn't get a lot of attention, shower you with attention. You
Yeah,
want to, for me, it was feeling seen and heard. Like
exactly.
he would listen to me and he would, show active listening. And I was like, oh my God, he listens to me.
Yep.
Oh, which
Yep.
also, as an aside, is like the bare minimum from a man.
It
I
is.
was like throwing him parades, like, he listens to me. And you're
Yeah.
like, your friends listen to you. What do you need a man for? And I
Right.
agree, it's not really so gender specific, but I feel like this message is given to women more, right? That
It
we
is.
need a man, we need that. So we need to fulfill this fantasy. But
Mhm.
what do you see when people start to maybe start to notice that that fantasy is unraveling? Like what makes it so hard for people when it's starting to unravel, but they don't leave yet?
I think a lot of what you see and a lot of the parts in us that are leading, that are our people picker, our picker is picking someone that we can create the life we believe we should have had, that we can experience the love that we know we deserve, right? It's this secret little feeling of wanting to be rescued and wanting to be loved and wanting someone to notice. And when I talk to my clients, well, one of them said to me, well, I had like a speech impediment. No one noticed. Or I grew up and I had a lot of acne. My parents were so busy, they didn't even notice. They didn't notice. I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. They didn't notice. And I met this man and he took care of me. We got married. I got on his insurance. I got Accutane. He took care of me. And so, did he take care of the adult or did he take care of the middle school girl that was so ashamed and embarrassed that she couldn't go to school? She felt so uncomfortable. And so that is the part of us that's leading. And so when it starts to unravel, you have this little part of you that starts having a tantrum, like, you can't take my fantasy. This is my chance. This is my chance to be loved. This is my chance. How are you going to fight that? Honestly.
I think, and unfortunately it doesn't work, timing wise doesn't work out this way. If you could go back in time and learn to meet your own needs and to love yourself and self validate, that's a good part of getting out of a relationship like this, is to start to be able to say, like, I don't need a man, I don't need anybody to make me feel whole and to listen to me or to make me feel seen. I see me. But easy to say, of course, but when you're in it, it feels like someone's taking something away. I think
Yeah.
the thing that a lot of people miss about leaving, like, come on, he's abusive, just leave, is that you have to flip your entire life upside down, internally and externally. Suddenly you don't live in the same house anymore. You don't have the same job, maybe, or you have to work. And if you were a stay-at-home parent, or your financial situation is precarious now, because we know that a lot of abusers are terrible with money or addictions and things like that. Suddenly your kids go to a different school. Suddenly your in-laws are gone. Suddenly it's everything is just gone. And internally, everything you thought you knew, you're wrong. So change it all. It's like it's too much. So you're unraveling the fantasy and you don't even recognize that that's what it is. I think if somebody drew you a map, it would be clearer, but it's still hard.
You give up everything. Everything about your life instantly changes when you say, I'm leaving. And a lot of times, if this isn't what is talked about, a lot of women have to leave. You actually can't make someone leave. You can get the court, you can get the cops. I'm in Las Vegas. Women have lost their lives trying to get men to leave their homes or trying to go back and retrieve their belongings. And that was happening when I was separating. And you lose everything. You lose access to cousins and uncles and people you thought were your family and your friends. They are gone. Everything gone. And so to think about, how does a person manage that on their own? How do they manage that? But there's also an identity, a shattering of who you thought you were. I thought I was someone's wife. I thought I was someone's mom, you know what I mean? Stepmom, whatever have you. I thought this was my life. This is the life that I wanted. And I don't just have to give it up. I have to give up everything that goes with that life. Everything. And I didn't do
Yeah.
anything. And I hear women tell me, I didn't do anything. All I did was try to love this man. And now I lost everything. My credit is ruined. They coming to get my car. I didn't do anything. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. It's total destruction. You know,
Destruction.
who said that? Sam Vakin? He said
Mhm.
that. Total destruction. And that
Destruction.
it's you're giving up the abusive relationship, although post-separation abuse is a whole separate topic, but you're giving up the relationship, but you're giving up everything, including the fantasy. So how do people pick up the pieces if they have to make this decision? What do you tell people?
One is you have to have help and you have to have support. There's so much shame involved in what's happening to me, and you don't want anyone to know. And to me, I'm like, no, this is what's happening. I had to tell the producer on the show, I'm like, I can't come down here and be on TV because this is what's happening. She said, what? Come stay with me. We care about you. And like telling people, like, this is too much. So many people just showed up, and so many women that were in my life started to share more with me. Like, I've been friends with you for years. I didn't know that this had happened to you. And oh my God, the love that I received. And there's a lot of people that threw shade. I'm not going to tell you, it was people that threw shade, honey. I will curse them
Mm,
out today if I see them in the street. But there
same.
were people that just poured love into me and supported me. And that is what you need. It's like the shame, when you open your mouth and say your truth, that's how you deal with shame. And people just come to you, they gravitate, they will help you. So you need support. And a lot of times, the small details of all of this, most of us need someone to hold our hand because it's too much. It's overwhelming. And that's what trauma is. You can't think through the small details. And we know that to be true. We know that when someone's had a catastrophe, when their house is burned down, they send a case manager out to you to walk you through everything. No one expects anyone that is going through that much upheaval to be able to navigate an application for a new apartment, to figure these things out by yourself. You can't do it. You neurobiologically can't do it. It's not about your personality. It's not about you being weak. You can't do it in your brain. You can't do it. And you need that help. And my baby
Yeah.
wants to come and hang out.
I felt that way too. I tell people sometimes you need to just take some small steps. Like maybe it's not rent an apartment, but it's start thinking about where you can live or what you can afford, or just, start to learn more about the financial situation that you're in, but just take some baby steps at the beginning, but support. You need people. And it's hard because there's people obviously that don't have anyone, some people that have not the greatest people, and then some that have the most amazing people. shame is such a hard thing because a lot of people, even unknowingly, even well-intentioned people, I find are like, oh wow, that's awful. Why didn't you leave faster? I don't understand. Why just you stayed?
Yeah.
They're like trying not to judge you. Is they're like, you stayed with
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
face that I'm exaggerating it, but you know that just that sort of tilt. I don't understand you. That's what
Yeah.
they're saying. And immediately you're like, shame, and you don't it's hard to even explain. So I feel like, I mean, social media has been incredible especially over the last like 5, 6 years. But I feel like even since the pandemic, people
Yes.
got bored, went onto TikTok. That's what changed it all for me. And you start to go, oh my God, that's what's happening to me. And to be fair, in my comment sections, I see, oh my God, this is me
Yep.
every day, all day long. People just having these realizations based off one video being like, wait a
Right.
minute,
Right.
this is
And
me.
so much of the abuse, like you said in the beginning, a lot of people don't even realize they're being abused. They really don't. And a lot of times it happens and it doesn't happen again for 6 months, doesn't happen again for 8 months. So then are you going to tell someone, oh, you're abused and it happened 4 months ago, but everything is fine right now? That was just an isolated incident. That's what we tell ourselves. It's just an isolated incident. It won't happen again. And when it doesn't happen again, you put it out of your mind. And so we have this dynamic where we're seeing a pattern and we're judging people for not responding perfectly in the most desperate time probably ever in their life. And our expectation that you all of a sudden become a therapist and an advocate and you know what to do and you know the numbers to call, that's so unfair. It's so dismissive and invalidating of what's happening to a person.
It is. And I want to add that in addition to everything you just said, it enables abuse. Because when you feel shame, you don't talk about it. And if you don't talk about it, you don't get help. So you stay to avoid you stayed, you end up staying, and
Mhm.
then you stay longer and things can get worse, more dangerous. I mean, abuse is progressive, it continues to get worse over time, and it can be really scary. So allowing people a safe space is so important. And talking about your relationship is important so that around you can be like, girl, that seems like a fantasy. That doesn't seem real to me. This whole sweeping relationship moving so fast. I would love if I could give the world, especially young women, but the world a message. It's like there's nothing to rush for. You don't need to speed into a relationship. And I'm with you on the like talk. Why can't we just go for tacos? Why does it have to be sweeping gestures and a whirlwind romance? We are sold that
Mhm.
by men, but we're sold that message. We buy into it. There's this perfect fantasy. The abuser comes in and they hand it to us, and we're caught. We feel caught.
I always tell people it's greater later. It's greater later. Let's just hang out. Let's just enjoy it. This is awesome. Let's build up. Let's have fun. Like I live in Vegas. We can have any experience we want in the world. When I'm in Mexico, we can have any experience. Why does it have to be over the top? Why it doesn't have to be over the top. That's emotionally intoxicating on purpose. Someone is trying to create an experience for you. They are trying to control your reality. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And all these gestures, like all these flowers, you know what? I buy myself flowers every week. Every week. So when someone's dusty son wants to send me flowers, you're gonna have to put them next to the flowers that are already here. Right. And
Better be
so
bigger.
that's exactly right, because I got roses over here. You know what I'm saying? But it's
Yep.
I want to do those things for myself because it feels good. And I love it. And I love when I go and I get my flowers and I come home and I put them in that's good. And I have a little picture of myself from the 6th grade and I put the flowers right next to that picture. And as soon as you walk into my house, you see that, right? And it's because that's me. That's a part of me. And that part of me needs to see these flowers and know she's worthy of whatever she wants. You don't have to wait for someone to give it to you.
Mm-hmm. What an amazing message, though, right? I think we wait for somebody else to fill our needs, and we never really realize you got this. You can do this yourself. You do not
Yeah.
need anyone else to give you all of the things that you need. People are nice to have, if you want a partner, I'm not saying all women should just, I don't want a man at all, but have a man who contributes, where he's not a liability, he's reciprocal. You are mutually benefiting from the relationship. The thing with abusive relationships is it seems mutually beneficial and then it's not.
Yeah.
And it really, and in hindsight, it never was, but it feels that way, it looks that way, and that's the hook. So I think knowing that what you described there, this, all the things that they do at the beginning, it's manipulative and it's predatory. In my head, I know what people say because I hear this all the time. But what if, like, I get that some people do that, but what if that's just how he is? What if that's how he shows love?
Yeah.
What if it's not predatory? What if you're just making it up, Aishia?
And I hear that all the time. And what I say to that is, number one, the idea of power and agency only being attached to men is the biggest scam. Because I see myself as very powerful and I have agency and I can do whatever I want. And when I like someone, I don't go and buy them things. It's creepy, it's cringy. Like, I like you, but why am I going to spend $300 on a stranger? That doesn't make any sense. And if you come from a place of abundance, then you can see how that's too much. But if you come from a place of lack and feeling like, men are so cheap, they're not. They're not. If you tell yourself that story, then when someone does something nice for you, then it's larger than life. But when you have balance and you can say, I have power, I can give myself whatever I want, I can take myself wherever I want. So when you do things for me, you're not doing something that I can't do. And now I have to wonder, I don't know you. Why are you doing this? Why? Because it's a boundary. I like you too, but I'm not doing all these things. It's cringy, but it's only cringy when you come from a place of, I have so much. What could you give me? I want you. Why are there all these barriers to me seeing who you are? What's the barrier? Why are all these things in here? I just want to talk to you. That's why I just want to go to tacos, right? Because
Yeah,
now
just us. I don't need all the
just us.
and sweeping things.
Yes, we
Soulmate
don't need that.
conversation. Yeah.
Yes. And when you and as women, when you think about those times where we've been out and we've been with a person, it could be a friend, it could be anyone, and there was no one else in the room but you and that person, and you're laughing and you're joking and it's fun. That's the type of experience you want. So who cares if it's $300 for the food? It's about this connection. So let's focus on that. I don't need you to give me anything. I have everything. What could you give me? I have everything. I don't have you. So who are you?
Mm.
That's the
And then
conversation.
you start to learn who they really
Who
are,
they
not who
are,
they're
who they
showing you.
really
Yeah.
are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
I
the
love that.
test.
That is such amazing advice. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I think it's such an important message for people to really understand how they how they get in your head in the beginning of these relationships and this fantasy, and really more than anything, right? How to meet your own needs so you don't fall into that fantasy. Do you have any kind of final words you want to add, a message to anybody?
Yes, I do this work all day, every day, not just with my clients, but with myself. I'm always learning. Healing is forever. Healing is forever. And a lot of the shame of making mistakes, if I could get anyone to hear my voice, to just release some of that shame and know that we've all made similar mistakes. It's a scale. And so my mistakes may be bigger, yours may be smaller. It doesn't matter. We're here to learn. And so allowing yourself to make mistakes and be human and still knowing that, but you're still lovable and likable, and I still like you. I like you when you're sad. I like you when you make mistakes. That's the language of our relationships with our friends, our family, and most importantly, with ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I hope to have you back. Have another discussion some other time.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks.
Mhm.
Aishia Grevenberg, absolutely amazing therapist. Please follow her at My Therapist Life across social media platforms. I really want everyone to know that when you are in this kind of relationship or you're coming out of this relationship, healing is so hard. And in fact, in the words of Lundy Bancroft, healing is only hard when you don't know how. So if you're looking for a way to learn how to break your trauma bond, or if you've already broken it and you're trying to heal, then I want you to consider enrolling in the Trauma Bond Recovery course. This is an affordable 12-module program that takes you through building the education and the clarity that you need to really see things clearly, see the relationship clearly, see yourself clearly. And then you move into the second stage where you start to really look at yourself. This is where you will really connect with what Aishia was talking about with your unmet needs. You learn about what's missing inside of you. You learn emotional regulation skills, coping skills, how to build distress tolerance. And in the final section, you're going to learn all about self-love. This is where you're going to build who you are, build financial independence, build your support system, and really ultimately change your life. So please check out the Trauma Bond Recovery course and also hit subscribe, and you will see more videos like this on my channel, Stronger Than Before.
Stronger